What's up there, Washington football fans? This is Jonathan Osman. I'm with Jim Mojo Morrison. We did one of these back at the end of the season, I guess about a month ago, where we were kind of talking about what may happen with the hiring of what it may have been when they were hiring a GM. It seems like time doesn't.
When Marty Hurney came in as the player development
Yeah.
director and the new GM, and the whole situation with the quarterback position.
Oh yeah. It's like time's a flat circle these days. So I figured it was time to do an update because we've had the technically the league year hasn't even started yet.
No, the tampering period has started.
We're tampering right now.
It makes literally no sense. It's like, why can't they just go ahead and sign it when they're already telling you what they're going to do?
Hey,
it makes no sense.
New England was already ready to go as soon as the tampering period started. So tampering started Monday. It's Wednesday, and there is a lot to talk about, including a new quarterback for the Washington football team, Ryan Fitzpatrick. Who signed a 1 year, roughly $10 million deal. Fitzpatrick, well, Jim, look, you've covered a lot of teams. I don't know if you were covering the Jets when Fitzpatrick was.
No, I had just come back here full time. That was 2015 when that was the closest he's ever gotten to a playoff position. He was 10-6 that year, 10-5, went into the final week of the season up in Buffalo, up in Orchard Park, and just imploded through 3 interceptions that week. And everybody said, now we know why he's been a career journeyman backup guy. And that was the situation. Because the thing with Fitz, he's got, and they everyone likes to kid around with the Fitz magic, nickname and stuff. He's like that car it's still a good car. It can get you to church. It can get you to the local grocery store, get your kids to school, but it's not going to get you, to California, on a cross country ride. It's not going to get you all the way up to New Hampshire or, from North Carolina, we'll use as our starting point. It's good enough to get you to certain places, but it's not in the condition that's going to get you to the ultimate place that you want to go. That's my assessment of Fitz. And you look at his career, 9 teams now playing with Washington.
Yeah.
He's been 2 winning records in his career as a starting quarterback. One was last year. He was, I think, 4-3 because you threw the Tua record in there as well. And the 1 year with the Jets where he came real close, and then the Jets played around with him, wound up bringing him back, and then he came back to earth the second year with the Jets.
Well, I mean, so the Bears made this push to try to get Russell Wilson. That was never going to happen. Even though I saw somebody, on Twitter, it said like, oh, well, here was what they were offering, and it sounded amazing. But I mean, come on. So the Bears went and got Andy Dalton, who was back up to in Dallas last season.
See, I would have liked that signing for Washington.
Why?
Over Fitz? For
Andy
1
Dalton?
year?
Andy Dalton.
For 1 year? I mean, Andy Dalton has got a resume of getting teams to the playoffs. I mean, look at it.
With Jay Gruden.
But regardless, I mean, I would take Andy Dalton over Fitz. That would be my if the money was the situation. I mean, I think it's going to be
everybody signed for about the same amount of money.
Right. I'm saying the 10 million base, and then I think Dalton's going to make an extra 3 if he hits all of his incentive caps. So I would have taken Dalton over Fitz if I was making that pick with all things being the same, the amount of years which were, and basically the money was, $1 million or $2 million, which is, small change when you're talking, in the National Football. It wasn't like you were going to bring him to something that was going to lock you in to Andy Dalton for a long period of time. So, but what this signing does is it gives them that veteran that replaces Alex Smith. Like one thing, when we talked about Alex, you and I are both big Alex Smith guys.
Absolutely.
Love the story. But you know what? I think for the good of Alex and the good of the team, I think when I think about it now in hindsight, maybe it's time for Alex just because he came back, he was playing, and then all of a sudden, the calf muscles started to get tightened and they didn't know what was happening with it. And, at this point in his life, he's proven he made the comeback. He's made a lot of money. He's had a successful career, more or less, minus a championship ring. And you might as well, I think what Washington didn't want to do is, make him their starting quarterback and then have week 3 or week 4 have the situation they found themselves in at the end of the year where they had no idea whether or not he could play because of the calf.
Sure. Well, and you're not going to pay $18-20 million for
well,
that.
No, I'm talking about because you and I mentioned renegotiate that, bring him back for like
he probably
a $10
wasn't going to
million
take that. He
Well,
probably wasn't take that.
He's going to have to take it somewhere else if he wants.
Well,
to play
nobody
again.
signed him yet. I am surprised that Houston went and signed Tyrod Taylor, and I was listening as I was driving around today, and Jacoby Brissett. There is this aura of Jacoby Brissett amongst Washington fans, and Jacoby Brissett has done nothing
from that quarterback factory in Raleigh known as NC State. But if you think about it, they turned out a lot of NFL quarterbacks at NC State during our time.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Phillip Rivers just stepped down and retired, but they've turned out a lot. Russell Wilson, who they take credit for, even though he played his last year at Wisconsin. They still hang his number in the stadium there. So I think that what you're going to see now, Fitz is going to be your guy unless Allen or Heineke can somehow steal the job from him, and then they may make a move in the draft depending on how things play out. But at 19, that's a hard spot to draft a quarterback.
See, I feel like that there is the distinct possibility that you could see them still go for maybe a later quarterback. They're not going to have to break their neck to go get somebody.
No, I don't see them not going to do it, but they're not going to get the quarterback for this year in this year's draft.
Yeah, they may sign him, but they're not going to play him. Correct. Yeah,
right. That's what I'm saying. Ron is content. They're going to bring Fitz in. At worst, he's going to be a mentor for Heineke or Allen if one of those guys, makes all the necessary steps to assume the role of the starting quarterback.
That's right.
And they have that insurance of a guy that's played on 9 NFL teams and can win games if pressed into action.
And, for receivers, they're going to love the fact that he'll throw it downfield. Like, there's none of this throw 5 yards and dink and dunk. I mean, it's going to be a very vertical passing game.
Yeah, I mean, that's Fitz. I mean, Fitz, you look at his lifetime record, 59, 86, and 1 as a starting quarterback.
Yeah.
So it doesn't bode well. He's played on a lot of bad teams.
That's one of my questions. Is this probably the best team, though, he would have played for? I mean, you've got a stellar defense. You've got an offense that is ascendant. I mean, you've got Terry McLaurin. We'll see what they do at tight end to see if they can kind of add more pieces there. You got a decent offensive line, and you got running back. I mean, what more? It feels like that. Maybe with the exception of the Buccaneers, this is maybe one of the better teams he's had.
Well, he was drafted in the 7th round back in 2000. I believe 2009 was he was drafted.
No, he's been in the league 15 years. He was with the Rams.
The Rams, yes, yeah. St. Louis Rams.
It was like 2005 because Sean Taylor sacked him.
Was it that far back?
Yes.
No, 2000.
Yeah. It was right. 2005 or
You're
6?
Right, 2005. Yeah. You're right.
Yeah. He's been around.
I thought 2009. Well, that's still a long time. 2009.
A very long time.
That's still a long time. 2009. Yeah. I mean, it's 2021. That 12 years is still a long time. But you're right.
12 years.
Okay, so he's in the league then. I know he played for the Rams. Then he went to Cincinnati. He made his name in Buffalo, where he had that really good run for about 5 weeks, and then they went and gave him that huge giant contract extension, right. and then the roof, as you know, as a realtor, and the roof fell in. Right. They made the offer, they closed, and then they realized, we don't have a foundation to build this house, and that was the end of that. It was 4 years in Buffalo. That was his longest tenure, and then 1 year in Tennessee, 1 year in Houston, 2 with the Jets, 2 with Tampa, and 2 with Miami. So that's been the career of Fitzmagic. And you're right, Jonathan. 2005. I totally, I forgot he's been that far back with the Rams. And you're right, Sean Taylor did sack him.
Yeah. I was watching
great Sean Taylor. Yeah,
I know. I was watching some old highlights, and somebody said, like, "Oh my gosh, I have seen this before, and I didn't realize that the quarterback who was being sacked was indeed Ryan Fitzpatrick. I was like, oh boy, that's a long time. So look, Carolina seems like I think everybody in Washington really had hope that we were in the game for Deshaun Watson, and we don't ever know if that's even going to happen. But it seems like Carolina is one of the teams that's going all in on Watson from Houston. If successful, could we see Teddy Bridgewater get released? And if so,
Well, if you get Deshaun Watson, Teddy Bridgewater will be released. Yes.
sure. So could you see? I mean, not that you want to. I mean, you've already paid the man $6 million in the signing bonus, but I mean, is Bridgewater an upgrade over Fitzpatrick, or is it basically you're one for one?
I mean, he's a little bit younger.
You're just buying him for a year.
He brings you
maybe
a
two.
little bit different of a skill set. See, the problem is at this point, when you made the commitment to Fitzpatrick, and this is what you're going to do, and like what you're talking about building a vertical team, you bring Teddy Bridgewater, you're not a vertical team anymore. You're a different, it's a different
5
skill
yards.
set. Right. So now, so, you know what I'm saying? So they've made this decision. They went with Fitz. They gave him the signing bonus, as you alluded to. They've got the two young guys. They may draft one more, and see what happens. I just think that this is the move they're going to make for a year and buy some time. I think that, they're hoping that Heineke or Allen makes that next step and becomes a starting quarterback in the National Football League. And they have Fitz there as an insurance policy.
Interesting. I mean, I think I've seen some other people opine that maybe New England could try to go after Deshaun Watson. I don't know how they've got
They're
any
bringing
money.
Cam Newton back for another year.
Yeah, for just a year, and I'm sure you could probably punt him at this point. I mean,
But the New England is not going to trade the ransom that Houston wants to get for Deshaun Watson.
they seem to be trying to win the offseason, though. I tell you.
Yeah.
I mean, they've got Hunter Henry, they got Johnny Smith, two tight ends that are exceptional.
Yeah, it's
probably
almost like
one
they're
and two.
going back to the days of Aaron Hernandez and Gronk.
They are, yeah.
With the two tight ends. I mean, that's basically what they're trying. Because Belichick likes that, because you can run out of that, and then you also can throw out of that with the two guys that could basically be wide receivers as well as, the blocking tight ends. I mean, look at Tampa. Tampa had a slew of tight ends this year that were effective, and they would put three tight ends on the field. They can run the ball down your throat, but then they can spread those guys out in space and they can hurt you that way. And you couldn't cover them with your smaller defensive backs. And, New England kind of mastered that. Tampa used it last year. And that's something that I think that the Patriots are trying to go back to. And I'd love to see Washington go to that, because the tight end position was very effective for Washington a year ago. I mean, you think about it, it was a big safety valve and a very effective position when they weren't going to McLaurin.
Sure. Which team do you think would be the early leader right now in the NFC East? I mean, no team wins the offseason. Washington used to always, like, Bruce Allen would come out and be like, we're winning off the field. But, I mean, Dallas is always the favorite.
Well, whoever wins the offseason is it's like when you handicap the Kentucky Derby, you throw that guy out. You know what I'm saying? You throw that horse out of the race, because that horse has been picked by everybody and the mother to win that race. I mean, first of all, I just want to get your thoughts, because I thought it was the dumbest move, the Dak Prescott signing. Like, what are
really?
What has Dak Prescott done to deserve? Like here's the thing. Like, I was talking to Al Wallace up at Gardner Webb a couple of weeks ago. He was calling the game up there. I was producing, and we were talking about the signings. And he goes, the problem with the NFL is they pay good quarterbacks, great quarterback money. It's like guys like Teddy Bridgewater, Dak Prescott. Like, to me, there's like 5 great quarterbacks in the National Football League. And yet you're paying these other guys like they're those guys, Patrick Mahomes and Aaron Rodgers and Brady and Russell Wilson. Those are great quarterbacks, that are in the National Football League. Those are difference makers, game changers. What is Dak's been in the league how many years now? 5?
5 years. Yeah.
And where's Dallas been with Dak to me, when you see Dak Prescott, are you saying, do you worry about Dallas when Dak Prescott comes in like you do, Aaron Rodgers or Patrick Mahomes or
no.
those guys that's my point. So, no. But yet you're paying him like he's that guy.
Well, I mean, look, I think Dallas, Jerry Jones did the same mistake that Bruce Allen did with Kirk Cousins, and then they should have locked him up when it was affordable. And now this year, He got raked over
That
the
was
coals.
the smartest move Bruce Allen ever made, was not signing Look at Kirk Cousins. Is he worth the money that the Vikings gave him?
That deal would look, if you had signed him long term, that deal would look completely fine now.
Yeah.
At the time it was gaudy, but look, he was going to get 19 million on the cap. Why would you even bother taking less than that? Like, I don't get any player or any team saying, well, take 16 million when you're going to have to tag me and I'm going to get paid $19 million anyway. Like, that's stupid.
Guys like Brady did that for years in New England so that they could go and reinvest it in offensive linemen and players
But who says they're going to do that and know what they're going to do? Like, New England clearly had a system and it worked.
Right. Well,
not every team wants to do that.
Right. Very few players are willing to do that because very few players trust the organization.
No, I wouldn't trust
Especially when you're dealing with, when you're dealing with Dan Snyder in Washington.
Right. I saw NFL Live put up a graphic yesterday, and they titled it Beasts of the NFC East. And this is quarterbacks over the last 2 seasons. And Dak Prescott had a 73.8 QBR rating, where Ryan Fitzpatrick had a 71.5. Fitzpatrick had a 64% completion percentage. Prescott had a 66. Touchdown interceptions.
You're proving my point exactly.
Why would 7? They're both top 7 quarterbacks. That's crazy.
If you did not put a name next to those numbers, would you give that Dak Prescott? If you just read me those numbers, would you give that quarterback $160 million or whatever the hell they gave him? I mean,
so who got the better deal?
Dak Prescott got the better deal.
He got the best deal.
He's a very, very rich man for the rest of his life.
No, but which team did better
in their signing?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, Prescott's younger, and quote unquote, he's going to be. But my problem with the Prescott signing is it's going to limit them on what they can do to put people around them.
Just for a year.
Yeah, maybe longer.
Once the new TV deal comes out, like, this is the only year where you've had the salary cap decline because of everything that happened last year.
I mean, it's hard to assess because Washington did realistically the only thing they could do. They got another veteran quarterback that's serviceable for a year. And it's like the old, political phrase, kick the can down the road. That's in essence what they're doing.
I think I saw that Ryan Fitzpatrick would be the 32nd quarterback since Washington won.
My question: will Jonathan Osman have a Fitzmagic jersey on? When we find our new home for Redskin rallies.
If I buy a Fitzpatrick jersey, he will inevitably quit the team, get traded,
and then go in the closet.
Yeah, there's no way. There's no way I can do that to this organization.
I showed a good friend of mine season ticket Washington. I have to keep stopping and correct myself from saying the former nickname. And he used to be a season ticket holder like yourself. And I showed him your collection of jerseys that you showed me. And he goes to me, that poor guy. And he's a diehard Washington fan. He goes, there are some pretty bad quarterbacks that we've had over the years. He said and I was like, yeah, it's true.
I can't throw away good money after bad like that. So, but I don't think you weighed in. Like, what team at the NFC East is
okay?
Looks the best.
I think that you have to. I mean, again, you need to take a wait and see after the draft to make that calculation. I think the Giants are very quietly doing what they do. The Eagles situation, the Eagles are weird. I mean, right now, to me, the best team in that division based on last year is, I think Washington is right there, strictly for the fact that I think it's between Washington and Dallas at this point. If Washington gets any type of play out of the quarterback position, they're with that defense, they're fine. Yeah. To me, Dallas is Dallas. Like, no matter how you want to put it down on paper, they always have the most talent on paper.
Sure.
And to me, Mike McCarthy, I mean, they talked about Jason Garrett. McCarthy
is terrible.
I have a list of like the most overrated coaches that have won Super Bowls. Mike McCarthy's is right there in the top 5, and right next to John Gruden. like
Yeah.
of guys that have won Super Bowls and have, I mean, granted, not many people can win Super Bowls, but the real reality of them being actual good coaches, it's like circumstances won that Super Bowl for you, and not the fact that you're a good coach, if you follow what I'm saying.
Oh, I mean, Aaron Rodgers,
Right.
right? Yeah,
Yeah.
totally.
And knowing the plays of the other team.
Yeah, I wonder. I've been refreshing because there's been some rumors that we may see Kenny Galladay end up in New York, which I don't know how they have money to pay anybody up there either.
Right.
But I think
Like Galladay's going to the Giants, is what they're saying?
that's a rumor, as not a blue check mark.
Well, somebody in New York called me this morning and asked me, saying that Gettleman is interested in Curtis Samuel from the Panthers.
I could see that. I
And
could
he
I could
said
see
to me,
both of those guys going to either Washington. So that's my next. So Washington needs a wide receiver to go along with Terry McLaurin. I mean, Cam Sims was nice, and he was a restricted rights restricted agent. So they tagged him, they kept him for another couple years. But the reality is you need a serious receiver. And so you've got none of these receivers have come off the board. Does Washington?
Samuel is a very good player. I like.
Oh, he's amazing. Like I can't. Kenny Galladay, Will Fuller, Curtis Samuel. But you also have a very deep receiving class in the draft.
Well, I wanted to touch on that because I was, checking out these mock drafts and looking at all these different things being written. And when I was doing an afternoon drive, I used to, one year I had a bunch of mock draft guys, and there was one guy that came on who does a really respectable service. And he told me, because he used to be a former scout, and he said to me, he goes, anyone that writes this stuff doesn't know anything, because anybody that knows something doesn't write about it.
Right.
Because they're not tipping the hand type of deal.
Of course.
But one of the things that I thought was an interesting one is the Washington trading up a couple of spots, like giving the Patriots like a number 3 third round pick in like 2022 and taking the Waddle guy from Alabama in the first round. Ooh. And I thought that, that I know that a lot of these guys write for the sake of filling,
any content. Yeah, it's all content.
But that makes sense. If you think about it, you give up a 2022 third round pick. The Patriots are always stockpiling. Go up to like the 15th pick in the draft, and you take Waddle, who the only knock on him is he got hurt last year. But that guy is fast. I mean, he's kind of like Curtis Samuel, but only, he doesn't have the NFL experience. But that was and he played on a team with 2 tremendous wide receivers ahead of him. But they said that would be a guy that would make a lot of sense and be a perfect fit for Washington with McLaurin. And you put those guys on the field, and now you've got deep threats galore. And it goes back to your original point at the top of the podcast here, Fitzmagic with the verticality of throwing the ball down the field. You put those 2 guys on the field, and now all of a sudden you could, take your shots and take a lot of them.
But you saw last year that Rivera went hard to go get the receiver in Dallas. And of course I got you right as you're drinking.
I'm sorry.
The receiver in Dallas that Rivera went to go try to get last year. My brain died. Anyway, so I mean, why wouldn't he go out and get Galladay, who's probably top 5 in the league right now, or Curtis Samuel?
Yeah, I mean, if they can get him, I think that would make a lot of sense. So now you would think Galladay would go to Washington and Samuel for the Giants.
Amari Cooper. That's what I was thinking.
Amari Cooper, yes.
Yeah.
That's right, Ron. Which is kind of, Ron, to me, the guys that Ron has brought in over the years are more like I say, like the Jericho Cotry types, like the good citizens, solid guy. You could depend on him on third downs. Those are the type of guys that Ron likes.
So Will Fuller's out.
Yeah, exactly. Ron, I mean, I think you saw it last year, and you got to, basically figure it out as the year went on, what type of coach he is. He's a very high character, good guy in the locker room type of coach. And certain guys don't fit in to what he tries to cultivate, in that locker room.
Is he more of a guy that I feel like last year we got a lot of bargain players?
Yes.
I mean, is he a guy that goes and just shops the bargain bin, or is it, it's more than that. Like last year, you had to
I
shop
don't
the
think
bargain
I
bin
don't
because
think
you
I,
didn't know
right,
what you were going to do at quarterback or
right, and they
anything
didn't. I
else.
don't think they had a choice last year. They kind of were, had this is what it was, what it was, as they say, and you have to basically make the best out of the circumstances that you're in. And I thought that the quarterback position really hamstrung them from the get-go because you had Haskins there, you had the pressure from the owner to at least give them a look
Of course,
in the
yeah.
beginning, and you and I have discussed this both on and off the air. Ron is a good guy and he's a loyal guy, and he got hired. He gave his owner the respect that it warrants. He gave Haskins the shot, and then Haskins showed why he's not the starting quarterback. Dan Snyder, surprised Dan was wrong about a player, but yeah,
Surprise.
right, but like you and I have also but Ron that never threw Haskins under the bus, never ripped him, never said anything disparaging about him. Just basically said, we talked about it, and we're just going to part ways, and this is what it is. So I thought that was a big issue. I thought that the offensive line, you try to figure things out. I mean, it wound up not being a bad offensive line,
No.
but it had its problems at times pass protecting, but overall it was pretty good considering what they had to work with, and the receiving. I mean, after McLaurin, there wasn't a lot of weapons out there.
There was none. Steven Sims hated catching the ball, and Cam Sims came alive, which he has been kicking around practice squad for a long time, and that was, I think, a revelation that he can be this receiver, this big body, tall receiver. But Logan Thomas was, I think,
Logan Thomas to me. I mean,
it was amazing.
How many years did you and I sit there and say, well, when is Jordan Reed coming back?
I mean, when is Chris Cooley going to suit up and get back on the field?
I mean, Logan Thomas was what Jordan Reed was supposed to be when healthy.
Oh, absolutely. Except Jordan was a lot faster, but absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
But I'm talking about that reliable third down option when you needed that, you needed to move the change.
He was exceptional. That I think was probably the best pickup that Rivera and right this team has had in I can't even remember, probably since
now what did you think of them bringing Miller back?
Yeah, I was surprised. I think that says Bryce Love isn't going to be on this team much longer. I think that has more to deal with if you're going to have
Lamar Miller hasn't played since 2018.
Well, he wasn't active, but you've got Peyton Barber,
right?
And who are your other? You threw running backs at me, but I mean, I think that just says like we have.
Well, because it just happened today, and I kind of thought that was interesting that they brought him back.
Yeah, you have all right, Antonio Gibson, J.D. McKissick, Peyton Barber, and Bryce Love, right? And then Jonathan Williams and some other guys that are never going to see the field. I don't think that spells well for Bryce Love. And right. I think that's a guy that we've all been waiting for to see come to fruition for what he was in college. And sadly, I think this means that Bryce Love isn't going to see action in a Washington uniform. He must not be coming back. He must not be. Now, granted, we're not going to have OTAs this year. Maybe we will. I don't know. People are getting vaccinated, so maybe that's good. But yeah, I think maybe Lamar Miller is just that emergency backup in case Peyton Barber gets hurt or J.D. McKissick. J.D. McKissick was fantastic. That's another amazing pickup.
Yes.
And then Antonio Gibson clearly is your bell
Barber.
cow.
Yeah, I mean, and then throw Peyton Barber in there as well.
So
yeah, what do you think that they're going to wind up doing with Sheriff? Are they going to sign him long term, or they're just going to tag him for the year?
You gotta sign him. I mean, how hard. I mean, I get
he's your anchor.
Your anchor, and as hard as it is, it seems like all these teams that have had issues. I mean, you saw the Super Bowl. Look at the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. They had the raft of injuries, and granted, Sheriff has had injuries, but you get a good player, you keep them. And I hate seeing guys that have played here and played well here walk, and for whatever reason. And that kind of leads me to my next question, which is, we've saw, this morning we saw that Nick Sundberg, the long snapper, was 11 seasons with the team. He was told that he's not in the plans with Washington any longer. He was former Walter Payton Man of the Year. Feels like when you get that, whenever you get that award, it almost means like you're out the door the next season.
It's kind of funny that you say that because, Thomas Davis got it here in Carolina.
Yeah.
And Craig Olsen got it here.
Yeah, Vernon Davis.
They both retired as
That's like
Panthers
the kiss of death.
Yeah. It's like, okay, he's a great guy, but you know what? It's time.
Yeah, so it's like, yeah, you're a veteran. And Ryan Kerrigan. So I was just reading.
See, I that one hurts. I'm a big Kerrigan guy. I liked him, and I know this is a business, but I just like number 91 in burgundy and gold.
It's tough it's tough. I was just 45 minutes ago, John Keim from ESPN tweeted, "We'll be curious to see what happens with Ryan Kerrigan in free agency. Talked to a few teams who view him as a situational pass rusher. He strongly believes he can still help as a starter. Not sure how wide the door is that's open or door open here if he can't find what he wants elsewhere. I don't know if this is how other teams view him, only that a few that I've talked to only takes one that showed what he's seen last season, that he's still a very productive player."
Right.
So I kind of wonder if we could see maybe RK back in burgundy and gold if he can't find a starting role out. I mean, he's what, 30, 33, 34. I mean, he's very productive, but I mean, he was very productive last season because all he had to do was come in and rush the quarterback.
Right.
I mean,
they've drafted a tremendous defensive, line. And
you're gonna have to pay those guys too at some point. I mean, we're getting to the point where Deron Payne, Jonathan Allen, those guys, their contracts are going to come up, and man, they're going to be expensive.
Yeah, I mean, because after quarterbacks, to me, defensive linemen are the second most important position that you have to pay in the National Football League because they're difference makers and they're so hard to find. And then offensive tackles and players and whatnot of that nature. To me, like when you look at the skill guys like running backs, wide receivers and stuff, you can find those guys. It's the good linemen and the good quarterbacks that are at a premium that you have to, like you said, go out and pay. And those defensive linemen that Washington has, I mean, those guys they're real good, and that's going to be the strength of this team for the next couple of years.
What did you think of the signing of William Jackson III to replace Ronald Darby at quarter?
Well, you look at, I think if Ron signed him, Ron, look what Ron did to Josh Norman.
Mm-hmm.
Ron's system of what he does, certain guys fit it and excel, and then you take them out of Ron's system, like Josh Norman, and all of a sudden they're not so good.
Sure.
And I think this guy he's a big, strong cornerback. He's been durable. He missed that first year when Cincinnati took him. I think he was like the 15th pick or the 16th pick in the draft in like 16 or whatever it was. And I think that he's got the physical tools that in Ron's system, I think he can make an impact. And you put him with Fuller, they could have a good pair of corners on that back end. Like I said, to me, that's one of those where I really don't watch him in Cincinnati, because I don't watch a lot of Bengal games to say. Right. But I'm saying if Ron Rivera brings in a guy and gives him 3 years, then Ron knows a little bit about coaching defense. Then I trust Ron on that move. I mean, you look at his size and his physical attributes. He has the ability based on that to dominate in Ron's system.
What I found interesting is that Cincinnati was 31 in 31st, ranked 31st in sacks per pass, while Washington was 4th last
Washington
season.
had the second best pass defense in the National Football League.
Absolutely. And I wonder if, I remember that Carolina Panthers defense with Josh Norman. I mean, they were dogs on the defensive line, and they always got to the quarterback. So it's like you had so few time, such a short time to make a decision that it was almost like it gave the corners license to
Right.
get interceptions. And I wonder if that may help him because, when he was ranked, he's probably the top ranked corner that was free agent this offseason,
Yeah,
but
I
it was
thought it
still
was a
like
good
ranked
move.
18th.
Right. I thought it was a good move simply because, I think it fills the spot that they need. And I think Ron, has a plan for him. And in that system with like what you just said, the defensive line, I think he's going to, this is a perfect fit for him.
Yeah.
And then I think in Washington made a good move there. And that's going to only make that defense even better than it was a year ago.
I mean, I was surprised. I think when
I wasn't
Rivera
really.
signed,
Were you upset when they lost Darby?
when they signed Darby, I kind of followed all the reactions in Philly, and they were like, "You got yourself a dog of a player, like a terrible player. Like, what did you do? That he was going to be the guy that was going to give up all the touchdowns and just whiff in every coverage, and that him playing opposite Fuller, but with that D line." I mean, you saw he had his best season, and he got paid as a result.
Right.
And
I think
so,
I think Williams steps in and has that kind of a season playing opposite Fuller with that defensive line. That's just my guess based on the fact that I know Ron and Jack Del Rio and Chris Harris, the defensive backs coach. I think they know what they're doing. So you kind of have to say, okay, I trust the coaches that it's sort of like when the Hornets brought in Gordon Hayward. Someone texted me, "Oh, they overpaid him." And I said, "Dude, if James Borrego wanted him, he has a plan, and he'll fit in." Because Borrego, to me, James Borrego, not to get off topic, is a very good coach,
sure.
And he knows what he's doing. And you could see the improvement that the Hornets have made now in year 3 with him as the coach. They've weeded out a lot of the veteran guys, et cetera. And that's kind of how I've said to you from day one with Ron, when Ron got hired in Washington. They now have a guy that's going to build a culture and a foundation of winning and positivity and things of, success. And to me, if Ron brings them in, then I trust Ron and Del Rio and Harris that they know what they're doing.
All right. So is Ron Rivera and Marty Hurney by extension, are these guys that typically hold on to players like that have ties to the team maybe a little bit too long? Like you see like in New England, like Bill Belichick will just send somebody out. He doesn't care who you are. Like he'll replace you, no problem. Where I think in Washington, we had a lot of players that stuck around probably way past their prime, but were fan favorites. Are they more the type that is going to go for next man up, and it's a business, and we kind of going back to like the Ryan Kerrigan and the Nick Sundberg, and I mean we're going to see Ryan Anderson likely move on to another team, or are they likely to stick with a guy year after year that maybe not as productive, but is good culture and fan favorite, for continuity with the team, keep the locker room together. Kind of like, I mean, Thomas Davis was always very productive, but
they held on to him too long. And here's my answer to that. I think that in Carolina, you might say guilty as charged. However, Jonathan, I think Jerry Richardson had a lot to do with that. I know for a fact, part of why Dave Gettleman got fired is Dave Gettleman had no emotional attachment to Thomas Davis and Greg Olsen. And Jerry Richardson wanted them signed when they were like in their the early to mid 30s for, a number of years. And Gettleman says that's not a good move for a football team to invest in guys of that nature. And like you said, they were productive, but they weren't productive for the amount of money that you were going to give them and for what you needed from those positions. And I mean, you look at Olsen at the end, he was hurt all the time. You look at Thomas Davis, he was hurt all the time because they're
older. Yeah.
Right. And Dave Gettleman had no emotional ties to them and said it does not make, it's like Belichick. Belichick gets rid of guys sooner rather than later. And people always, I mean, think of all the guys that the Patriots have just let go.
Yeah.
And you say, other than Brady, who forced his way out. Everybody else, like, I mean, and like Richard Seymour. I mean, you're talking like top-notch guys when they're let him go, and then they go somewhere else. Nate Solder. I'll never forget when the Giants got him. A friend of mine that covers. I said, dude, Bill Polian. I once had a conversation with him about NFL free agency, and Bill Polian said to me, when it comes to the NFL, when it comes to trading and free agency, it's like trying to buy a used car. Beware. Because if the guy's willing to sell it, there's a reason. Because if the guy is still going to help them, they're gonna figure a way to keep him.
Right.
And when Belichick gave Solder up and he went to the Giants and they were all, oh, he's going to sell, and he was a bust for them. You know, he had a little bit better year in year two, but that first year he was terrible. And I look at a lot of guys like that, and I think you look at what, you know, with Kerrigan and some, I think they're showing you is, at least here in Washington, that they're not those guys.
Yeah.
Because I mean, anybody, those are fan favorites, particularly Kerrigan. I mean, I just said it to you. It really bothers me.
He's my son's jersey. I mean, it's just,
right. I just, it bothers me that they're letting him go, you know, from a fan point. But when you check your fandom at the door and do your job, you know, on radio, you say, okay, it makes sense because they have to do. It's like Billy Beane in Moneyball. Used to go watch never listen to the game because he never wanted to make an emotional attachment to a player. You know, he just did everything based on numbers and analytics and things of that nature, which is another thing that about Marty, which I think I told you, is that part of the reason why he was let go here is Marty's the old school, scout him in the, look me in the eye, look, what's in that belly, meaning the heart. And that's the type of guy. And Matt Rule apparently is a big time analytics guy, and him and Marty did not see eye to eye on that. And David Tepper had given Matt Rule 7 years. So guess who left?
Yeah.
But that's what I was told I said, why did, he goes, Marty just doesn't believe. I mean, he doesn't hate analytics, but he doesn't want to run a football team based solely on analytics.
I guess we're going to see new school versus old school.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's what Ron is. Ron and Marty are old school.
Yeah.
Belichick's old school.
That's true.
And you look at some of these, like the Browns, they do everything based on analytics.
And they had a heck of a season.
Right.
Finally.
But there are some of the things that they did would drive me crazy because it's like it made no sense because it's just not football.
Right. Well, so Washington still needs, by my count, wide receiver, I would say another tight end, inside and an outside linebacker, and a safety. Anything else? Like, who do you think is going to be the next big signing? Or are we pretty much done with the big signings? The market's going to cool on all these players, and then we may not see anything until about maybe a week or two, maybe draft.
Well, I think that they're out there. Again, you know what it is? It's hard to project from where we're sitting only because we don't know what they're asking.
Sure.
You know what I'm saying? Like
nobody knows, right?
Right. Exactly. So it's hard. It's like hard to say, like what you were saying when they tell the player take $3 million less. Like, it's like, you don't know how these negotiations are. I mean, and a lot of times guys like Marty Hurney, they're going to get the guy that they think immediately might help them, the veteran. But I'm not a big fan of NFL free agency, Jonathan, because I don't think it really overall makes that big of an impact. I think you build the success of your team. I mean, you can fill in guys through free agency, but to me, you build the team through the draft and being good at that. That's how I mean, you talk old school, new school, because I don't think there are very few teams, think about over the years, that have been successful instantly based on free agency. Very few teams. I mean,
look, Washington.
Right.
Washington's a prime example.
The two teams that I covered in my career, Washington and the New York Jets. Yeah. I mean, I remember the year the Jets went out and got Ronnie Lott, and they brought Art Monk in, and they brought all of these guys in. And it was Boomer Esiason. It's like they brought all these guys in. I mean, look at all the guys that Washington brought in over the years.
Jeez. Yeah, no, look, you make a solid point. Look, back in the day, growing up in the 80s and 90s, I mean, back in the day, it was not uncommon that they would go, Charlie Casserly would go get, I mean, the team was all vets. They could care less about draft picks. Right. And today's NFL, it's just not how that works. And it seems like you have to go and You have to be strong at drafting. And so I guess the question comes, is there going to be somebody there at 19 and with their draft picks that's going to be able to fill their needs? And I
See,
guess
another position that I've been looked at, and I would is that if they are stuck at 19, that they would get that linebacker. I think what was it? There was a linebacker from Notre Dame the line. Oh, I can't think of his name now off the top of my head. Jeremiah Owusuku Koromoa.
Sure. Yes, that sounds right.
That was a guy that Charlie Casserly is saying. Yeah, is a guy. Owusu Koromoa, I think is how you would say his name. But
jeez, I hope that we get to say that all next season.
Yeah, and Casserly says that he's got the potential to be a star, and that's for the guy that if Washington stays at the 19th pick. And then there was another one, Daniel. That they're going to go for the offensive line and get that left tackle to have for the next 10 years to replace our good friend that you wear his jersey, but I won't say his name.
Oh, Trent Williams, who got paid.
I know.
Got paid.
But I don't like to say his name because of what he did.
I don't like what happened to him.
Yeah,
so I think Bruce Allen.
That was a team. Bruce Allen, Dan Snyder situation.
I know, but look, that was when he was kind of still floundering out there. I was hoping against hope that he would come back to Washington, because I would love to be able to whip out number 71 again. But
no, he was a good player. You're right. What happened to him was god awful. I just didn't like.
He got a long-term deal too. Like,
yeah,
he's going to be with Kyle Shanahan for a long time, and that's good for him. Good for him. Okay, so I guess
No. All right, two other quick things before we go.
Okay.
You didn't comment on re-signing Dustin Hopkins. I told you I wanted a new kicker next year, and you told me
look,
he's fine.
Who out there was going to be even worthwhile better? I feel like that last season we even saw where they bought in like the COVID kicker, and
I
didn't want him
back, and you told me no, he's coming back, and I have to give you kudos. You were right.
Who's better? Like, there's not anybody out there that's going to be markedly better. He only got a year, so clearly it's a short leash. But for all these teams that go through kickers,
that's true.
Like, just sign the man, just make him your guy. Like, whatever yips that kickers have, he'll work through. Not everybody can be Tress Way and just, the absolute GOAT at punter, and just keep your kickers.
Now, my last point, how is the survey and the polls going for our new home for Washington football?
Yeah, so that is fun because
believe it or not, the mayor of Kings Mountain has been inquiring about it, because he wants to know.
We're not coming out to Kings Mountain.
No, but he wants to know where we're going to be based.
That's
coincidentally, the mayor of Kings Mountain owns WGNC, which airs the Redskins. That's why we're
Washington football team. But
Washington football. Oh my God, yes,
you're going to have to practice. So. So I got a lot of responses, and I'm going through them. There are some
out of town. Where's
it's going to be in town. It's going to be in Charlotte. I want to keep it. Look, Washington will be playing in Charlotte this fall. So
there should be a Redskin rally.
There will be a Washington
rally. Well, that was my other question. When do you think they're going to get a nickname for this team so we don't keep doing that?
When we come Hail to the Prime, and Dan Bezos, Jeff Bezos is our owner. I don't know.
So Dan's going to be selling? Is that what you're hearing?
That's just a rumor. That's just a rumor that he may be behind some of the stuff, but it makes it interesting. So for me, I want to keep it in town. I want to keep it somewhat nearest the stadium. I've got a few places in mind. I'm going to start now that I'm getting my vaccine on Saturday. So
I got dose one last Tuesday. I get my second one December 30th. Are you getting the Johnson & Johnson Saturday?
The Johnson & Johnson.
You're getting it over with. I actually now, because I've had a really bad week, like fatigue-wise and stuff.
Yeah. I heard it's bad.
And I got it like the last Tuesday, and I go back on the 30th, and I had the option to get the Pfizer at Bank of America. I texted you that day when I was there. Or go to Johnson C. Smith to get the Johnson & Johnson.
Mm-hmm.
And now in hindsight, I should have just gotten the one and done and been done with it. But it is what it is. But I mean, it wasn't bad. Except for some reason, and Tommy Viola, the media relations director for the Knights, is a good friend. He's had the same effects as I have, where he's just had this rundown, feeling for the last week or so since he got it. He's, it's just weird. Like it just affects everybody differently.
Sure. So, but back to the home. So I'm trying to figure out if we do a place that is like Whiskey River size, where we could have the rally, or do we do something that's maybe more modest in size that will have parking, because parking was very high on the list. So something with available free parking, but then have to do the rally at a separate location.
It became an issue the last couple of years when they stopped comping the actual parking and giving the coupons.
Yeah, well, that was disappointing, and I'm cognizant of that. So, the parking is going to be a big deal, and so I've got some places that have got free parking. And then I've got some places that we may have to get creative with parking, but we've got some, but the location's really good. So I've got to find a way to marry the two. So we'll see. I think I'm not going to announce anything until the league year is finalized, because I want to know when that date is that we're doing the rally, and when the game's in town. And knowing my good luck, it will probably be the weekend that I'm scheduled to be in Mexico on vacation. So
when? August?
No, in around my birthday in October. So
are you going in October? Are you going late during the season this year?
I can't handle when I'm born.
Oh, you're good. You're good. It is what it is. You got to do what you got to do.
I turned 40, and that was. Wow. I'm tired of.
You're catching up, my friend.
I'm tired of being stateside.
Yeah, aren't we all? I'm tired of being in Charlotte's side.
Yeah, I'm with you. All right, the league year has
nothing against the Queen City. I love it, but
we've been doing this long enough. Yeah, no. All right, the league year has officially started right now. That is, we have finally hit it 4:00 on the East Coast on the 17th. It is now the league year. Time to start signing contracts. Free agents coming in. We may very well see. I see John Keim is hinting around Curtis Samuel, possibly signing.
Washington?
Possibly one year.
One of my Giant connections up in New York is telling me that the Giants are going to go after him with Gettleman. Now, whether that happens, I don't know, because he wanted to know what kind of player he was, because he's heard that Gettleman was going to try to get him, and because Gettleman drafted him, they're going to try to bring him up there.
All right, we'll see. Fingers crossed. Here's what I don't want. I don't want Kelvin Benjamin or some other retread.
Right.
Carolina Panthers.
That was a Marty pick from Florida State.
Marty pick.
But Marty's been, you look at Marty's overall body of work. He's had some bad ones, but he's also had some pretty good ones.
Yeah. No, look, I think with all these guys, nobody hits a home run every day. So we'll have to see what plays out. Thanks for joining. Let's do this again.
Let's do it soon. Now that we have league news and things to talk, we'll do it a lot more frequently.
Yeah, and then the draft will be here, and who knows? Maybe we do something around the draft again. Something fun that night. Maybe we do a live stream that night as we're going through the draft and prepare for the news. And about that time, I'll be ready to talk about our new place.
Hopefully. All right, bro. It's a pleasure. Happy St. Patty's Day to you and everybody that's tuning into us, and whether they do it today or down the road.
That's the thing. That's the thing about a podcast. They can do whatever.
May the luck of the Irish be with you.
You too. Yeah.
All right, my friend. Have a great one. It was a pleasure.